I learned some things from this court proceeding that I was really surprised to hear. Before we get into today's video, I do want to let you guys know that this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please remember to be kind to everybody everywhere in your everyday life, in your home, in the grocery store, and especially in the comment section down below. Please do not show hate to anybody, anywhere. Good morning, my lovelies, my beauties, my friends. My name is Christina and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I really hope that you will subscribe, stick around, take a chance in hearing some things that I have to say. And if you are a returning subscriber, y'all already know, y'all are my babies. So good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everybody doing today? I hope you all are having an amazing day. And I hope y'all had a good and productive weekend as well. So part of my weekend was going over and over this gag order hearing that was had last week. And there are just some things that I heard in this hearing that I did not know, and I was pretty taken back to hear some of this information. And then some of the arguments that the prosecution has and the defense has. Let's just go over what I feel like was the highlights from the gag order hearing from the Bryan Kohberger case. So first, let's talk about Bryan Kohberger's appearance during court. And you gotta, listen, you gotta admit, he looked good. He looked much different than when he comes in his orange jumpsuit with the bulletproof vest underneath, you know, and the clank, clank, clank of the shackles on his feet. But he came in with a suit, looking all spiffy and put together and like he was ready for court. And this is obviously a strategy by the defense and is also his right. So he is no longer going to be looking like a guilty inmate, and he's going to now be looking like a civilian. And it makes a difference, you guys. I mean, tell the truth. I know that some of y'all already got it in y'all's mind what y'all feel like the outcome is going to be when it comes to Bryan Kohberger. And you guys already know, if you watch my last video, what I feel as of now, as of the information that we have now. But I'm open to change. I mean, I want to know the truth. I want to know the truth more than I want to be right. So we're going to work through this together. But in the meantime, Bryan Kohberger's new look is giving. It's giving a new look. So one thing I wanted to talk about real quick was one of Bryan's attorneys got up there and explained why they're saying he entered a plea of standing silent. And he said that the reason why they did this was basically, the way that I understand it, is so that they can challenge the grand indictment by the secret grand jury later.
The reason we stand silent with grand jury indictments is because there's an old arcane rule that says that if you have a grand jury indictment and you enter a plea, you are accepting the validity of the indictment. I haven't seen a prosecutor try to use that in a long time. But we can avoid any possible claims that somehow we can't challenge anything with the indictment by simply standing silent and having the court enter the plea. So just so that everybody's clear, that's why we do that.
Good morning. So editing Christina here. So I just wanted to say, listen, after hearing Bryan Kohberger's attorney explain why he says that they stood silent or did not enter a plea, where therefore you guys remember after the grand jury indictment, he stood silent when he was asked to enter a plea, and the judge entered his plea of not guilty. Well, Bryan Kohberger's attorney said the reason why they did that was that way they reserved the right to challenge the grand jury indictment later. Now that we heard him say that, that makes sense. And after hearing that, I feel even more that there should not be, like, no cameras in the courtroom. Because if we don't know these types of things, then we're left to speculate or wonder why. And the public's involved. There's no going back from that. There's no way to shut everything down. Everybody's going to forget about it and it'll be handled privately. That's never going to happen now, right? So I think it's important that we are able to hear these things. If you guys watched my last video, then you know that Ann Taylor, Bryan Kohberger's, I guess, head attorney or lead attorney, had to file paperwork on May 19th, basically demanding the evidence that was presented to the grand jury that got Bryan Kohberger indicted. And as of last week, she still hadn't received the evidence, which to me is so wild. Like, if this is a home run case on the prosecution side, if they have all of these 5 terabytes worth of information and, 10,000 photos and hours of this and of evidence. Well, hand it over. Let her see what it is. But as of last week, they still hadn't handed it over. Maybe she's gotten it now. And so they haven't even had a chance to go through the evidence in order to challenge the grand jury indictment because they don't even know what was presented. So I don't know. I just feel like this shows why cameras should be allowed in the courtroom. The attorney for the victims' families got up there, and the first thing he did was thank the judge for apologizing to the victims' families. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but he was stumbling over the names, and he got Kaylee's name wrong, and he was stumbling over Xana's name, and it really kind of upset some of the victims' families. And so the attorney went up there on record and thanked him for apologizing, and I thought that was good because that basically let the public know that the judge did address it and he did apologize. But then, y'all, he started off small. He started off like thanking him, but this attorney came ready. This attorney that I'm going to be speaking about now is the one that represents Kaylee's family, and he is fired up and ready to present his case and defend his clients and talk about their rights and what has been done wrong and how his clients feel. And it was good, y'all. Something that he said that I was floored was that the prosecution allegedly, according to Kaylee's family's attorney, the prosecution has never interviewed Kaylee's family. I did not know that. He got up there and talked about how Kaylee's family, they basically don't know hardly anything.
Let's just make it clear. The victim's family has never been involved in this investigation, ever, from the get-go. After Mr. Kohberger was indicted, we received no information about anything regarding the prosecution. Nothing. They wouldn't even tell us that a grand jury was being impaneled for Mr. Kohberger. They told us that there was a grand jury that was being impaneled, and common sense, we figured it out, because he's the only guy in the county. But they wouldn't even relay that information. They haven't given us any information regarding the investigation of the case. But the most critical part of it is that the prosecution has never, ever interviewed the Goncalves family.
Now, I will say the prosecution does go up there and later on and ends up saying that we told them what we could tell them to keep the integrity of the case, but then it goes back to Kaylee's family's attorney and they say that they feel like basically their clients, which is Kaylee's family, are basically, in my own words, being picked on or being left out of information or being maybe even punished in a way because Kaylee's family was so critical about the investigation in the beginning. And we was all critical. I mean, it kept going on and they kept coming out and saying that they did not have a suspect and Now, maybe that was a strategy, but if it was a strategy, it was a dang good strategy. Like, stand on it. Be proud of that. But if it wasn't a strategy and they was scrambling, I can't blame Kaylee's family or any of the victims' families. I mean, and then to know that even all the way up until now, and now we're in the middle of June of 2023, and this happened last year, that Kaylee's family don't really have any information. I didn't know that. I thought that they were keeping quiet about stuff. I had no idea that the prosecution hasn't interviewed. They're not, as of now, they're not even witnesses. They're not witnesses to testify for nothing. They're not in it at all. They're sitting on the outside like most of us. They might get a little bit more information than us, but it seems like they're sitting out here, and that shocked me. I cannot imagine. Imagine, you guys, put yourself in this position, in these families' positions, and that was your loved one. And you have no idea, and there's a gag order in place that is so strong that you can't get any information about what happened to your child or your sister or your girlfriend or whoever. You know what I mean? You can't get the information. They don't know. And if this gag order stays in place the way it is, they may not find out what happened to their family members until the trial. And truthfully and honestly, this trial could get drug out years. Sometimes people, they sit waiting to go to trial. Casey Anthony over 3 years. Oh my gosh, I just can't imagine, like the thought of just not knowing is a battle all in itself. Now, on the flip side too, I do understand, I think, what the prosecution is saying by wanting to protect the integrity of the case. I hope that's what's really going on. And we talked about that more in my last video. I hope that that's what's going on. I hope that is strictly to protect the integrity of the case. But at the same time, I feel for these families, especially Kaylee's family, because they have been the ones in the forefront the whole time. And when the police could not figure out, allegedly to the media, or to what we thought, they could not figure out who did it, Kaylee's family was boots on the ground down there. They was ready to go and be the investigators themselves. I mean, I don't know, I just admire them as a family. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes you got to be your own advocate and your own family's advocate. You've got to fight for your own family, and they was down there ready, and now they're sitting back and they still don't hardly know nothing. Like, that's sad. Then another one of the attorneys gets up, and they're presenting these different attorneys, the prosecution, the defense, the representative for the victims' families. They're presenting their case to the judge about what they want, whether they want to keep the gag order in place or whether they want to have the gag order lifted. And one of the attorneys gets up there and talks about the media frenzy, and about how the media frenzy is basically just like ripping their client apart. Bryan Kohberger, in my own words, making him into a monster and saying all of this stuff. And they're talking about how hard it would be to find jury members that are unbiased. But I guess I see both sides of it. And this is just my personal opinion. Of course, I want the gag order lifted, right? I want to know what's going on, just like a lot of y'all do. That's what happens when you have a big case like this. And that's what the attorney was up there saying. And the attorney was telling the judge that the public's interest in this case, like, yes, there's a huge public interest in this case. There was 4 college students who were slashed in their beds. Basically what we would consider doing the right thing. They were going to school. They were at home in their beds doing nothing, playing on TikTok. You know, 2 best friends from elementary school laying in the bed together, you know, probably talking about their night, probably talking about boys or, you know, whatever. Kaylee had literally just graduated and already had a job lined up. Yes, the public is invested. And not only are we invested, but then the investigators do press conferences, or the sheriffs or the police department, and they ask for the public's help. We are involved and we are invested. What I think should happen, and this is just, again, my very unprofessional opinion, I think parts of the gag order at least should definitely be lifted. And that's what it is. If the prosecution doesn't have a strong case against him, then that's a problem. If the defense is worried about the courts making the wrong decision, I mean, look at Casey. I mean, Casey Anthony, the whole entire world thought she was guilty and she got off. O.J. Simpson, a lot of people believed he was guilty and he got off. That doesn't really matter. I do think that when you have big cases like this, the jury should be sequestered, though. That's what I think. That way the jury can give a fair and reasonable opinion on whether they believe, based on the facts that are given in the trial, whether that person is guilty or not guilty. But I also think, and I'm just going to throw this tidbit in here, I think that people that become jury members, I think that they should get paid at least what they're getting paid at work. They should get, like, if you're missing a day at work, the government or the state should reimburse you. And I feel like I could say we should reimburse you because it's taxpayer dollars. Like, if you have to go sit and be a jury member for 6 weeks, you shouldn't have to worry about if you're going to be able to pay your mortgage, because you're only getting paid $7 a day on the jury and you're being sequestered. So I do think that there should be some change in some of that stuff. I don't think that you should get paid much more than what you make in a day at work, because if you start paying jury members tons more money, people will lie in order to get on the jury so they can make some money, you know, versus being honest when they go in there and they get interviewed to be a jury member. But I think that that's exactly what should happen, especially in big cases like this. The jury members should be sequestered. And I can tell you guys, with all of the honesty in my heart, I truly believe that I could see all of the bad information about a person that there is out there. But if I was sitting in a courtroom and presented certain facts, I could make an unbiased opinion. I truly believe that. I am that type of person. And so I know that there's other people, lots of other people out there like that. However, this isn't going to go away. I do think if the gag order stays in place and they don't allow cameras in the courtroom and he gets found not guilty, it's going to be a problem. You guys, just imagine what would have happened in the case of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard if there were no cameras in the courtroom, and the outcome would have been what it was. There would have been so much speculation. so much speculation that the only reason why Johnny Depp won that suit was because of his, fame. But for those of us that watched the trial, we know why he won his case, because of the evidence that was presented. So the public should be able to see what's going on. At the very least, there should be cameras in the courtroom. And again, I think the jury should be sequestered and they should be protected. Then that way they can make their opinion on what they see in court. The next thing is, it is rumored, and I told you guys, I believe I told y'all this in that other video, that Bryan Kohberger is working on this case as well. And if he is the guy, and I'm open to him not being the guy, but as of right now, I do think he is the guy, but I'm just going by what information is already out there. If he is the guy, he may have done certain things that has the prosecution worried about presenting a case without reasonable doubt, because the man literally has a master's degree in criminology. Literally. This is what he studied, was court proceedings, the frame of mind. You guys saw the questionnaires that he did for his college classes about studying like what criminals thought before they did it or what they did afterwards. I mean, he literally studied this. And he's too doggone cool, calm, and collected for me. And if he's the guy, again, if, and a lot of you guys have brought this up in the comment section, I think that it makes a lot of sense. It's a good theory. If he's the guy, this could be like one big project for him. And he could know that the prosecution is not handing over all the evidence because they don't have a strong case. I mean, for all we know, he could have took 2 blades there and used 2 different ones, and the prosecution knows that, and they haven't released that yet. He could have set it up to make it look like it was 2 different people. I mean, who knows? Because we don't know everything yet. And he could be sitting back cool, calm, and collected because he knows that he set things up to make it just a little confusing, because that's all it's got to be. Enough reasonable doubt. I don't know, y'all. I think information should be released, at least to the families. Come on. Let them go ahead and I don't know. I would say let them, if they want to, if the families want to know the information, I feel like they should be able to know. So at least, I don't know. I just can't imagine being in that position and that being my child. I'd be losing it. Y'all let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think the gag order should stay in place? I know I don't want to make the decision. I'm back and forth, but either it's going to stay in place and we're going to come up with what we think happened, or they're going to release the gag order and then we're going to go through what they said happened. One way or another. Either we're going to try to figure it out in theory or we're going to figure it out in facts. So they need to decide. Love you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank y'all so much for watching. I will be reading the comments to see what you guys think. Thank you again for being here, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.